All right. Well, happy Friday. Hope you all are having an enjoyable week out there. Welcome to another Fireside Friday here at the Delaware Entrepreneurial Center. So, where we are chatting with amazing people that are doing awesome things in the world. So, no exception today. So, a friend, an author, an entrepreneur. She is a general business specialist and has kind of been all, seen all, and has completely reinvented her life and helps others do the same. So pleasure to have Pamela Chanel David on the show today. So welcome, Pamela. We will dig in here after our short little intro. So join us. Feel free to comment on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're at. We can pull you up on the screen. If you have questions, all that. This is meant to be an engaging little 30, 45-minute session. So join us for Fireside Fridays here at the Delaware Entrepreneurial Center at Ohio Wesleyan. All right. So welcome, Pamela. It's great to see you virtually, at least. I know you are all the way out in the Sacramento, California area. But welcome to Fireside Fridays here.
I am. I'm coming to you from California, and thank you, Steve. It is. It's so good to see you virtually and be here with you and on the telecast.
Yeah. So, we always like to start, so obviously most of the speakers I know a little or a lot about, but give that color for the audience. The general, 10,000 foot overview, origin story, if you will, just kind of, where you have been in the past with your business journey and kind of where you're now and where you're going. So if you want to just kind of give a little bit of color about who exactly Pamela is.
Absolutely. So I would say, and I would describe my business background as one of pretty traditional, climbing up the corporate ranks, if you will. I spent the majority of my professional employment with the Macy's organization, which was an incredible organization. Had an opportunity with that to literally travel the world, work specifically with the greatest designers and some of the most creative minds I've ever met in my life. I was actually overseeing the fragrance area for the better part of working with those designers of the Macy's organization, and really had a chance to really take a deep dive into how that creativity can apply to business. So I feel very fortunate for that experience. As I say, really climbed the corporate ladder. Eventually I went out onto my own, Macy's being my largest client, seeing the need at the time for a very robust entree into the events and the events planning business for the organization. So had my own events planning company, and that was really my first foray into entrepreneurship. And having had a very steep and embedded corporate life, that was an interesting transition and one that I found incredible passion with. From an overall perspective, I approached that really in a corporate way at first, and realized that entrepreneurs really need to develop, like any muscle, one needs to develop a skill set. And so that's what I really enjoy doing the most, is building that muscle on how do entrepreneurs really successfully run those businesses. And just as a side note, when all of that was going on, building my career, raising a family, I have 3 incredible adult children now, it took a toll. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons in life that I want to share. And I want to have people that are integrating and going into the world of entrepreneurship realize is that you need to take care of yourself first. And that is a learning lesson I went through. Really, literally dug myself into a pretty deep health crisis, have had to work my way out of it from literally negative obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, sugars, all of it, paying attention to my health. And that was the beginning of the origins of really taking a look at how do I integrate what I've done over here into my personal life and show up, both physically, mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, the strongest that I could. So that was the beginning of the reinvented life. And I felt it was an important enough story to share. That's why I did author the Reinvented Life book, so that people would have a guidebook on how to do it. So that's a pretty big overview.
Yeah, well, and yeah, I mean, it's admirable, I mean, that you take a personal, struggle and point of your life, transform it, but then highlight that, right? Because a lot, at the times it's like, our the things that we maybe are hard or we're not proud of or whatever, we like get over it and then we like push it away, right? Like we try to forget about it and try to and instead you took the opposite direction, right? So you highlight that the emotional journey, the physical journey, and the mental journey, right? That you went through before, during, and then after, and then sharing that, so we got the book here, so she did write the book, and it's about, a weight loss journey, and then the trip that goes around with that. But it's so much more than that, right? I mean, so you are hitting those nuggets of information about entrepreneurship, about taking care of the physical beings that we are, right? So a lot of times we feel like we're invincible with everything, and then stuff catches up with us, right? And without health, we don't have anything. So, what was the process like of going through that, and sharing it?
Yeah, you're exactly right. This is so much more than a weight loss journey. I didn't want it to be all about what it's like to lose weight. There's several things that I had to incorporate into my life to do that. But honestly, the physical transformation piece of it, going from, that state of morbid obesity and where, you're like on a teeter-totter in a way, and you can either go this way and just ignore it and deny it and let the cards fall, if you will, or you can actually go the other way with it, like you say, highlight it, embrace it, and use it as an opportunity to really now redefine, reimagine, reinvent what you're doing. And for me, the physical part of it, believe it or not, was not as hard. I incorporated fitness into my life for the first time, better eating, better nutrition, actually, if nothing else, just reclaiming my health and paying attention to it. But the bigger piece, the bigger overcoming, was the recognizing of limiting beliefs that somehow or other I had adopted along the way. No one in my life ever told me that I wasn't athletic, as an example, but I just put myself into that category. So athletics and sports and fitness, none of that seemed to be relevant in my life. And so it was an example of what are these limiting beliefs that one puts into their life without any basis that then keeps them from seeing full potential in their life or in their business. And what I came to realize, and the reason that business piece is so important, is that it actually starts with the individual, that either they're contributing into a company or they're contributing on their own into building their own company, that strength has to start with personal justice, right? How just are we being to ourselves? And are we living to work, or are we working to live? And there's a really clear distinction there that through this journey of improving my physical health, I actually saw that was a key indicator for what the rest of one's life is like. And it was a recognition that we get into habits, right? And so I've developed a whole methodology where these habits form into routines, lifestyles, eventually into who we are. And is it really even relevant today? The way the world is, the way one's life is. What at one point is relevant may not necessarily be as well. And that key right there is what helps most people in their business, because we establish patterns in our business as well. That makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I mean, yeah, well, creatures of habit, right? I mean, and it's that continue building on things to get to the point of success or where you want to be or whatever it may be. So I'm curious. I mean, because I know you were corporate. You mentioned work. You know, you mentioned Macy's around the Columbus, Ohio area. We knew Lazarus, and then
Yes, I do.
Macy's came in and acquired Lazarus, and it's like all the Lazarus switched to Macy's. So I remember that transition as a kid. But you did that, and then you got motherhood, in there, and then you went back and got your MBA, and then have started this other entrepreneurial journey and everything. I mean, I think that's one thing that working households face is that corporate level journey, and then you've got parenting, and it's easy to just get stuck into that space, right? And just we all have, I think, aspirations, dreams, goals, desires, and everybody, wants to reach for that thing. And I've talked to so many people that are in corporate jobs, corporate careers, and they're like, "Oh man, I've got a really great idea, and someday, I'll pursue it." Or, "Man, I wish I would have, given this one a chance," or whatever. You've stepped out of that corporate role, done the parenting and the motherhood phase, which is always obviously lifelong, and then also hit into that entrepreneurship world, right? And so, I mean, I think that's that step that we all have, that kind of desire. I see it a lot with people, and maybe it's the fear of failing, maybe it's the fear of not, social pressure of what happens, not knowing what we don't know, not knowing where to start. Anything to touch on that, based on your journey and what you were able to do.
Yeah, I really think that's very important, because the trajectory of life that people go through, our educational system, our corporate America, it's not that it doesn't afford us a lot of stability and other things over time. But I think if anything has been taught over this last period of time we've gone through, is the sense that there isn't any security in that. It is just a matter of not needing to be as risk that adverse that a lot of people are. And so I would share that keeping one's life relevant, employment and corporate may be good at one time, but if there was anything I was to look back on and tell my younger self at this point, is start that journey. Don't be afraid of it. It might be exactly what you're talking about, a fear of failure, but really get some mentoring, get some coaching on that, because what is that failure really all about? It's probably a matter of not having enough confidence in oneself to go forward in their journey. And so what I would share with everyone watching this is, and that's why I'm so compelled to do what I do and have started actually a business agency for this very thing, is how do you bring this transformational work from your life into your corporate? And one thing today will show us that it's much more about integration. It's much more about staying integrated in your life, so we no longer have to separate necessarily what we're doing in one part of our life from another. Integration can be critical. And so this great idea or this creative idea that someone has, I would share that it's worth pursuing, because if it's an important idea to you, there may be a lot of people who can benefit and be inspired by that idea. I would also say that oftentimes what I was talking about earlier, which is showing up the strongest you can, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, will give you the strength to be that guide. And in giving the gifts that you bring, you're also giving others, whether that be potential partners, potential clients, potential customers, just people in general, get inspired when they see that someone is able to accomplish a dream and accomplish what is important and possible in their life. So I would not hesitate to get partners in that. And entrepreneurship, one of the critical parts about entrepreneurship, and again, was a big part of starting this agency, is to create a team, create advisors that can be around you so that you can make decisions based on not just what your experience has been, but about what others' experience has been as well. So whether that be starting out just corporate to entrepreneurship, or you had a long entrepreneurship journey, the key is who are you aligning with? And I actually did put it right on the back of this book. And I said, what you allow and who you allow around your life's table will determine the speed and extent of one's reinvention. So that is the key to it, is not just the logistics of starting the business, because that's all there as well. How are you going to fund it? How are you going to operate it? What's it going to look like? What's your vision with it? But actually taking all of that vision and putting it into action. I hope, Steve, that answers your question, and will be a help to people in the group as well.
Yeah, no, I think so. I mean, you're hitting on some of our pillars that we preach. So the idea that ideas, or solopreneurs don't build, companies. The team does, right? People do, right? Ideas don't build companies, people do. And so getting that effort, together, and it's the spirit of collaboration. I think that is one of the defining keys of the 21st century is, we had, the Industrial Revolution, and then, the age of the internet and everything. And it was a very competitive landscape in, the 1900 through, 2000, right? So, Apple versus Microsoft, Google versus Yahoo. And we still have that in competition, but I think there's this underlying theme of collaboration, and the realizing that we can get much farther if we work together, because the collection of our efforts together are going to be greater than either one of us alone, right? And so getting those like-minded people, surrounding yourself with those people that aren't always just the yes sayers either, though, right? I mean, because a team full of yes sayers, is eventually going to run astray, because you're not getting that balance of like, hey, that's great, we can shoot for Mars, but we got to hit the moon. Yeah. But yeah, so no, I think that's perfect, and that's so with the business that you're standing up. So you're taking the application. You've been fortunate enough to work with some really cool entrepreneurial people out there. Go down and hang out with Forbes Riley in Florida, and have been introduced, to a network that a lot of people look at as illustrious, and being able to leverage that, learn from that, and then help others in their journey. I think that's what is that the new premise of the business?
It is. And, to add to what you were saying, I think you bring up such an important point, is that, the Industrial Revolution took us so far, right? And then we broached into really a new paradigm with business. And how I describe it is we really actually went structurally in business from what I would call a vertical hierarchy, right? A management hierarchical based society in terms of business, to a horizontal hierarchy. And that horizontal hierarchy, the Facebooks of the world, the Pinterests of the world, the Googles of the world, you walk into their offices. I've actually gone in and done a study of their offices. And when you go into those workplaces, it's a totally different environment. It is based on exactly what you just said, which is collaboration. It's teams of people working together. It's someone in R&D and someone in sales and someone in marketing and someone in finance coming together and working project-wise to move and elevate the mission of a particular project or company in a concert type of a way. So it's not each instrument playing on their own, but it's an orchestra coming together and having a bigger power in doing that. So if you take that model of collaboration, if you take that model into a horizontal hierarchy, you're moving from management to leadership. And it's really, how do we lead our own lives? If we consider ourselves the CEO of our own life, running the business of you as an example, that's how this transition can happen so powerfully for people. So if you think about it, and the reason I'm so passionate about moving, not just in helping individuals transform their lives, but the piece of their life that's so important is, how are they running the business of their lives? And entrepreneurs need to realize that there's huge support out there for them, and they're not out there on their own. So it's exploring the structure. The company that we're building is not just helping with the formation of the businesses and guidance on that, but what is the structure going to look like? Is a partnership a better idea for them? Or is, subcontracting? We're in such a gig economy right now that may make a lot of sense, where they have expertise in one area and they're bringing in the collaboration of a partner in another. So what's beautiful right now, it's, I'm staring at these flowers on the screen and realize it really truly is like a garden that you can grow to exponential limits. And no longer do people have to live within their either own limiting beliefs, that of a business or that of a corporation. It really leaves a more endless landscape and an infinite possibility.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a great point. I mean, the CEO of your own life, right? Because so often we separate, business and personal life, home life, family life, whatever. And you've got to have both. I don't personally think that there's such thing as balance, right? So that's just my thought. The balanced life, work-life balance, they're intertwined so much, right? And you've got to have both ships in order if you're sailing ahead, right? So it's very hard to build a company if your home life's a wreck. Similarly, if your home life's, if your business is a wreck, your home life is going to be suffering as well, right? So, and social life, I mean, you can throw a number of things out there. But I think that's kind of the point, right? Is that we have to look at this as all encompassing, right? So this is, business is, life, the family is life, it is, we're CEO of our lives rather than just of our companies or heads of our households or participants of our households, CEO of a life.
Yeah.
I like
and
it.
what I usually share with clients is that people are still entitled to their privacy. It's not as if you have to commingle that part of your life. Certainly privacy is a privilege and something that you should really respect yourself on. At the same time, gone are the days that, men have to throw on the suits or women have to dress in a certain way and literally leave what they're doing at one part of their life and show up in their businesses. It's more about, what is one's mind that someone is bringing? What is the energy that someone is bringing into a scenario, rather than just going and accomplishing tasks that are all outside function? You can't necessarily achieve what you're talking about, balance, from a standpoint of internally, where is someone in their fortitude, in their grit, what they're able to prioritize. And so instead of talking about balance, to be honest with you, I actually talk about grounding with my clients, because I think grounding is what's important. Grounding is, are you solid in what you are doing? Do you have the confidence that is needed to go out there and achieve whatever business goal and personal life goal that you have? And they are stemming from you as the CEO of your own life. You, your beautiful family, your wife, all your children, that is part of who you are. And so to try to leave that at the door, so to speak, and go out, even if going out today means virtual, it takes away from part of the strength of who you are. Because if you're finding success and enjoyment and soulfulness in parenting, why not translate that same methodology to one's business and vice versa? It's about a grounding more than a balancing, because our businesses are seasonal. Our lives are seasonal. There's sometimes that concentration is going to be more on one part and more on another, but it's the knowing and the being okay with that. That's the foundational grounding part of the work someone needs to do with their business. It's not just about what are the terms I can get on that merchandise, or what is the logistics of keeping certain inventory in check, or if you're in a manufacturing business, what's the productivity? There's always going to be data points that need to be touched on, but the more important piece is, where's the leadership, not the management. It's not about the tactical accolades. It's about you're leading your own life first, and then that of your business, and ultimately maybe that of your team, and also leading your customers, and how open you are to making those shifts when something isn't relevant.
Yeah, no. Well, and I mean, leadership is one of those terms that is thrown out there, and it's got, many different, definitions or styles, if you will, or whatever. What do you see as some of like the most effective points? I mean, you're kind of hitting on it or whatever, but with leadership, but what have you seen that works with people in their businesses as they lead a team or lead a company grow? What are those qualities or those focus areas, if you will, within leadership?
I love this question because it's at the foundation of what someone's doing. So the first thing I would share is a little bit can seem nebulous at first, but I'd really encourage people to think about this, which is what one is doing relative, and especially in their business, what maybe worked in the past may not necessarily be working now. So time is accelerated. And I think one of the most important pieces is that business owners, entrepreneurs, people leading teams need to not be afraid of being decisive. And knowing that decisiveness takes them into action. Without being decisive, one has difficulty getting into action. Now, with that decisiveness comes, and this is kind of the distinction that's most important for entrepreneurs and business owners to sort of grab onto, which is that those decisions that one is making about their business don't need to be forever. In other words, one is entitled to redefine it. One of the things in the agency that we're beginning to talk a lot about is reimagining things, reinventing things. Of course, based on a personal note, that means one thing, but even with a business. So there's a stigma involved with loyalty and keeping things the same way. And that served a purpose for a long time, but it was under a different management ideology and under a different paradigm of the way business is running. Things change all the time. And so I would encourage people not to be afraid of making decisions, because if it doesn't work out, the beauty of what happens today is that you do have an ability to pivot. And I think we all saw that pivot. I think we all saw that pivot in terms of how our businesses were being run, maybe pre the pandemic and post the pandemic, and what kind of shifts, like a snap of a finger, everyone's life and business changed. And so we have to be sensitive to be able to operate in an environment that is one way one day and another day the next. And having the basis of those ideologies being able to move in relevancy. The other thing I would say, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what business you're in, no matter who you are serving, as a leader, either of yourself or of a team or leading clients, whatever the case may be, it's going to require grit. And I think this term of grit, of work ethic, I always share with entrepreneurs that what they are going into isn't easy. And I really like to sort of put that out there from the beginning, that it is going to require hard work. Nothing comes without really putting effort into it. But along the way, where one's efforts in terms of the grit and the work involved with what they're doing, again, is going to change. A business is going to go through many, many phases. It's going to go through the formation stage. It's going to go through the startup phase. It's going to go eventually into a growth phase. So that is going to require a different amount of energy, a different amount of inertia, a different amount of grit and emphasis each time. So that is the second point I would really emphasize. And then the third thing that I would emphasize in terms of being able to be successful is not just how visionary one is, because entrepreneurs really share that vision, that optimism, that knowing their conviction could be possible, but how do they manifest that? How are they getting the word out there? How are they supporting their network so their networks support them? And today, along with what we were talking about earlier, it is critical to work in collaboration with others, to make the investment of your time and what you're doing with others so that they do the same for you. They will freely give you opinions, like you said, maybe not always the yeses, but form a team, a board of directors, if you will, a partner. Work with individuals that share, like you said, those like-minded thoughts to help an individual vision come to life in terms of business. I hope that helps people watching and listening.
Yeah, well, I hope people are taking notes. There's a lot of great nuggets there, and that's the beauty of modern technology, is that, kind of lives out there in the virtual world forever, so people can go back to it. But yeah, I mean, it's the elements of leadership. I mean, you've got like John Maxwell's, the 21 essential elements of leadership and everything. I mean, that go through stuff and have out there. But it really is that setting the vision and projecting it and being able to continue that, right? So not just to put it out there once, but to be able to perpetuate. Simon Sinek gave a talk the other week that we need to make a shift from calling CEOs of companies instead of chief executive officer. What exactly does that mean? Like, chief financial officer, I get. Chief marketing officer, okay. Chief operating officer. What is a chief executive officer? And so he's arguing that we should call them chief CVOs, chief visionary officer, because they have to put the vision out there and perpetuate it continually. And that's what usually will drive work ethic, right? So people, if they know where they're going and you've got alignment with optimistic reality, right? I mean, because I think that's the things with entrepreneurs where glass is always half full or more sometimes, right? But you've got to have that dose of reality in there, but not to the point where it kills innovation or it kills decision making. So exactly like you said, the absolute, in my opinion, the absolute worst, and this is what I preach to our team, the absolute worst place that you can be is at the point of indecision.
Yes.
If you are at the point of the indecision, you are stagnant. You are not moving forward. You're not moving back. You are just in that zone that just kills companies, ideas, morale. I mean, right? And so I would rather have people execute and fail, as long as they're doing it not a malicious intent and they've got data to back up why they chose what they did and all that. Go fail. That's fine. But the point of indecision is a worse place to be than failure.
It's so true what you're saying, because I've actually helped people eradicate failure from their vocabulary and know that if they're attempting something, one of two things is going to happen. Either they are going to find a success or find a win in whatever it is they're doing, or they're going to find a learning. And they're going to know that that attempt and whatever that is, they've learned from, and they're going to move forward with. So actually the idea of failure can really be eradicated, and people can look at what they're doing as a success if they've even learned something from it. And this is no more evident. And I'm so glad you brought up John Maxwell, because amongst a lot of really industry leaders that I follow, Maxwell is one of them. And I think of all the work and the writings and the brilliant organization that he has created. I think the most important law, if you will, that John Maxwell speaks to is the law of the lid. And I like to take a second and describe that, because the law of the lid, and I always visualize it, like a big soup pot or something, right? You have a lid on the top. And so that liquid, that soup, whatever it is you're cooking in that pot, it's made to hold it down. It won't escape. It's not going to splatter all over. But the idea that one oftentimes lives into the law of their lid. Corporate America is a perfect, for as wonderful things as there is about it, and there absolutely is, there is a certain element of holding down. It's not all about accelerating one's productivity or one's soulfulness or one's mindset or happiness. It's how do you keep the person down just enough to get the productivity before it gets too much. And so I would caution people to follow that law of the lid and not artificially hold oneself down. Maybe it's expertise that you need. Maybe it's guidance. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's education, a certification. I don't know what it is. It's different for everyone. But equip yourself is the point that you can work in bigger arenas and have bigger visions, because the environment is shifting so fast. And so what's serving you in your business right now, and I know that you've seen this in your own, looks different year by year. 18 months ago, your business, as an example, looked very different than it looks today, right? And so the idea that you are open to what that possibility is, really infinite possibilities, is what is enabling it to grow and manifest and be relevant today, because you didn't have that lid on you. You purposely removed that lid. And I think that is something that people don't make a conscious effort enough to do. And I would encourage them to do, is remove the lid, remove what's holding them back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's, that's exactly right. I mean, if you put a cap on potential, if you put a cap on what will happen, you're only going to ever max out there. Right.
Exactly.
So, yeah, well, and I looked back at an interview we did, I guess, almost a year ago. And, we were under the Nico Plastics name, as opposed to, then it's migrated to Nico Tech. And now we've got a whole new Nico Brands, collection of companies and everything. And so it's like I had that vision that that's where we could go eventually. I didn't know how we'd get there. I didn't know how it would manifest out, and how it's, played out. And it's like, originally we were looking, acquisition targets. Now it's like, well, shoot, we could take this thing to the moon and be, a standalone, entity of organizations, of companies, of operating divisions. It's crazy how things, can occur when you remove that lid, right? When you remove that cap of what's defined as potential, right? So, and again, being willing to, to pivot and adjust, right? You've got to have flexibility. And I think that's the difference, with startups and corporate America, right? Corporate America, we get into these regimes, and then it becomes a culture of this is the way we operate, right? So they purposely or not, they set boundaries, right? And so we look at the layers that exist in for a decision to be made in corporate America, where startups is like controlled chaos, like let's go, and decision made, check,
Yes.
like consider it okay, and maintaining that, I think, is some of the toughest things, regardless whether you don't have to be a startup, right? You don't have to be a high growth company or whatever, but maintaining that spirit that you, when you started, of innovation and the vision that you set forward, and that passion, right? How do you keep that fire burning at the same degree as when because you have to have a lot to go out and make that jump, right? You're literally jumping off the cliff, maybe a plan, maybe not, and you don't know how you're going to get down, to the ground. That's a common analogy that's given, about entrepreneurship, right? You're like, I'll figure it out on the way down. That passion that's burning, that fire, that drive. Mm-hmm. How do you keep that burning, throughout 20 years of a business, whether you're high growth startup or whether you're just a sole practice or partnership? Any tips, tricks, or things that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always about, at the end of the day, keeping it fresh. Whatever it is you're doing, it's about keeping it fresh, integrating something new in it, whether it's a new relationship with someone, maybe it's incorporating the ideas of a new philosophy, or maybe it's expanding one's services or goods that they offer. Maybe it's really just honing in on what that strength is and celebrating that and exposing that in a new way to someone new or an organization that's new. Steve, what you do, and a lot of why I know you're experiencing and will continue to experience success, is you're constantly expanding your network. You're constantly expanding those like-minded people that you're talking about, whether it's an individual local chapter as things start to open up a little bit that people attend, or finding online groups. There's just a limitless amount of ways that people can inject new ideas. One of the most successful things that I've done in the last, say, year and a half is not just individual coaching and advising, but expanding that to groups, thought leader groups that really help each other to elevate and to see each other in new ways. And so it's that keeping it fresh tip that's very important. The other tip I always give people is make time for yourself. And the reason I spent some time talking about my own reinvention, and I can elaborate that with people a lot more, is I want to use that as an example of being sure, like any muscles we're building, physical muscles, and I mentioned it, emotional muscles, mental muscles, spiritual muscles, keep evolving and don't settle. And I think it's that settling into that comfort zone that keeps people from actually driving their business. So if one is looking at the performance or the results of a certain aspect of their business, it is likely going to be directly proportionate to how strong and correlative of where they are in their life. So being sure one takes time for themselves, being sure that maybe they do something that is fitness oriented or spiritually oriented, or helping to, as I talked about, ground themselves in other areas of their life, may not seem like there's going to be a direct correlation to performance of a business. But again, that resting, that re-energizing oneself is critical. So entrepreneurs listening, take time for yourselves, honor yourselves. That may seem counterintuitive, it may seem awkward, it may seem selfish, in a way to people, but I can't encourage you enough that it's not, because it allows you to become stronger and for you to give your gifts to your company, to your organizations you're leading, to yourself, even more liberally, because you're more grounded with it. And then the third tip I would give in terms of, again, keeping it fresh is never stop learning. A lifelong learner, whether that's reading, whether that's accessing, there's no limit to information now. It can be got through any medium, podcasts, YouTube, videos, reading, authors, speaking engagements. I mean, literally, there's an endless stream of being able to learn from. And again, synthesizing and taking in others' points of views and knowing that none of us know it all, but we can take our expertise and share that liberally with others. Listening and watching today's show, whether you're watching it live or you're going back and you're watching the recording of it, is an example of one's willingness and one's excitement to learn, because there's takeaways that you can find everywhere that will help your life and enrich it so that you start leveling up the vibration and the frequency with how you're operating in life and how you're showing up for yourself first will help you show up for others that you're leading in your families, in your businesses, in your organizations, in your charitable endeavors, whatever it is in life that you're up to. Show up the strongest and continue to thrive and be excited about learning would be that third tip that I would suggest.
Yeah, no, it's ABS, right? Always be a student. I'm a student of life. I'm a student of other CEOs. I mean, I would not be doing anything that I'm doing without that influence and those people that you can cut the learning curve, right? Like, hey, where are the landmines that I need to avoid? And then also, I think critically important is pay it forward, right? With each one, teach one. Reach down and help others. If you there is no such thing as a self-made person, right? Mm-hmm. We've all been influenced, whether that's just by, having a mastermind mentor, via podcast, right? I mean, you can, as you alluded to, you can go out and connect with anybody. I mean, John Maxwell can be your personal mentor, even without having to know him, right? There's enough stuff out there that you can read, grab, video, YouTube, podcast to do. So, but then pay that forward, right? Help be the guiding light, to someone else, help others with their journey. And that's, I think we're seeing I don't think it's at its peak yet, but I have seen that trend and that growth of the collaboration, of the wanting to help others, and just this cohesiveness, right? And I guess that's, because we're kind of like in this connected era, right? We've shifted from, the industrial age, to a connected era where, and COVID, if nothing else, shows how intertwined we can be, right? How easy it is to reach out across the globe, and, access information, access people, access connections. We'll see companies, like you mentioned with the gig economy, we'll see companies built where the founders might not ever meet. Right? I mean, think about that. Exactly. That's crazy.
No, it's so crazy and it's so true, though. It absolutely is.
So, well, we appreciate your time. This has been fun. So thanks to the audience for tuning in. We got ways to connect here. So, you can go check out Pamela at reinventedlife.com. That's got her connects, her socials, can contact her there, and then watch the journey, as you build this new entity, right? So with the business strategy and that growth mindset, right? That you experience yourself and then get to apply and help others. So commendable. And yeah, this has been fun. So
It's been great. And I thank you for the opportunity. And one of the things that is growth experiences for myself and others is interaction. So I really want to encourage people to interact with me. Find it on the website. You can email me info@thereinventedlife.com, whatever, very easily accessible, because it's about having conversations about what can, like you say, I pay forward to others. What is it that people can learn from me, and likewise what you're doing, Steve? I really want to commend. I love this concept of Fireside Friday. I feel so honored to be a part of it with you, and just wish you so much success, which I know is coming. I have every faith in the world in you, and I just love your spirit and love the spirit of this Fireside Fridays that I've had a chance to listen to. So.
Yeah, no. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's one of those mediums that we try to help out here, and with my I guess role, as founder CEO, building a company, but then being out of the entrepreneurship center and helping out here with others. And I mean, this place has been awesome. So I mean, it's the hive, if you will. The stuff that we've witnessed here of people just interacting, right, and connecting. You get that in a company. In the entrepreneurial world, that's what makes working facilities, startup studios, entrepreneurial centers, whatever, so unique and so awesome, is because you get that cross-pollination and that collaboration and that buzz and that stuff that happens, and you've got like-minded people that are all pushing towards different industries, different technologies, whatever, but it's knowing that you're not alone in that journey, right? And then the pitfalls to avoid, and then the help and the collaboration. I mean, So, but no, thank you. I appreciate it, and
absolutely. And I want to support you guys. I want to get out there. Things are opening up. Visit the center. I'm really proud of what you're doing, and love to support you guys in being a part of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and it's connected to era, and truth be told, Sacramento is probably going to be our launch area for some of our stuff. So I'll probably be seeing you one way or another.
I'll really be able to support you then. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So, well, thank you, Pamela.
And have a beautiful Friday, everyone out there that's taking their time. I don't take that lightly to join in on conversations and hopefully learn and be energized. And again, thank you to you, Steve, for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and everyone have a wonderful weekend. Don't let the momentum here carry it throughout the weekend. Remember that, action equals traction. So, enjoy.
Beautiful. Thank you.